Welcome to the Answers Yes podcast, where we interview some of the most interesting people that have said yes to opportunities in their life. We hope that through these stories, you can learn to create your own destiny by saying yes along the way. Join us as we explore the new series covering topics such as passion, integrity, and hard work. I'm your host, Jim Riley, and I hope you enjoy these interviews as much as I do. I believe that everyone has an important message worth hearing. Hello and welcome to the Answers Yes podcast. Thank you for turning in. I've heard so many great comments about some of the recent politicians or people that we've had in elected roles. Sheriff Lamb down in Pinal County, lots of comments on him. Wonderful man fighting against the fentanyl crisis we have. And then we had, of course, Kat Kamak from our congresswoman from Florida, one of our youngest female congressmen in the Republican Party. So at any rate, I have our state superintendent from Montana, Elsie Arntzen, on the line. Good afternoon, and thank you for making time for us.
Well, every day is an important day in education, and every moment that we can put our children first, I'm all in to do this.
And I've noticed that about you from the second I met you. You handed me your phone number. The day I met you, you said, hey, if you need anything, here's my number. I thought, wow, the state superintendent just handed me her phone number, and I used it, and you answered.
It's so important for government to be responsive and in a timely manner as well. Government needs to be accountable to the voter, and we the people is where we should start.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I know you have limited time tonight, and so do I, but I did want to get a few topics out on the recording here. Can you talk about what your role is briefly as it relates to the state, and maybe even what local superintendents' roles are in the local areas?
Sure. I'm an elected state superintendent, and I'm one of the 5 constitutional officers for the state of Montana. And I know I couldn't do my job justice, and by that, meaning I couldn't do it well if I hadn't been a legislator. Knowing that everything that we do is by statute, not just by state statute, but also by federal statutes. But being that said, I'm also very much a local control girl, because from one end of our great state to another, communities are what should drive education. I'm very traditional when it comes to our Montana values, 4th generation Montana, and I want to make sure that our future has that same view. It is about putting our children first, as well as our parents. And that's not an easy thing to do right now, because those experts that might be in that classroom, or that expert that might be in that hallway or that building, or even in that boardroom, may want to say that their priority comes over that of a student, or of any kind of a family matter. That's not where it should be. And that's not where I am in leading Montana in education.
Yeah. What a wonderful state to be involved with education, especially when I look at, the way that the system operates, meaning these school boards are accountable to the community, and the community actually has an opportunity to have a voice within the school boards and into our classrooms. And I just love that statement. It was actually by one of the attorneys with MTSBA, which is, I've used it a few times. When we think about that, though, and I love the rural school district system. That's where I'm at. And as I've heard you say before, that's kind of the core of what Montana is these rural schools and these abilities. What do you think are good qualifications for these rural school principals / superintendents? Because it's an animal of its own. And I know out here in Flathead County, we've got 4 schools all looking for the same position. And I'm hoping that maybe somebody will hear this show and go, hey, you know what? I have those qualifications.
Mm-hmm. Well, qualifications should begin at that local level. One of the things that I do know in our state statutes, we have a lot of flexibility to be able to have a different variety. So we'd like to also grow our own. And especially in rural Montana, in very small communities, let's grow that. Classroom teacher myself, let's make sure that that classroom teacher has an opportunity in leadership, not just in leadership, within that classroom of children and students, but also being able to understand the budget and the ability of any of those dollars It can give opportunity. So I firmly believe in rural Montana, we can do that, grow our own model using those flexibilities that are there. If someone raises their hand and says, I want to be that person, allow them, show them that there is a pathway to be accountable, but also a pathway of hope to get them to be that leader in that rural community.
Yeah, if I've got some teachers listening, and I love growth from within. Most of the companies I've worked for, or the companies I've started, it's all been about the growth from within because they understand the dynamics. If we've got a teacher out there, what is the first step? Do you go to school to become a principal certified, or and in rural schools require a principal and a superintendent? Do you do it all at once, or do you really kind of need one before the other? What do you know about that process?
Well, thank you. I do believe that, of course, it is about education and making sure that education has quality, but also equivalency. In other words, that our life journey is different for every person, even in education. And we want to recognize that life experience as well. And that's what the community level can do. That's what can happen to say, where are you? Where are you in your life? And where would you like to be? But put more weight on where you want to be. It's not all about going back to brick and mortar to the university system and sitting in a class all summer long while your family's back home. It's respecting where an individual is at this point and moving them forward. There's been so much that the pandemic has taught us about virtual learning and trying to be in a remote world. We want to make sure that those teachers have that very same way. So yes, having a Bachelor of Science or Bachelor of Art in Education can be a start, but that's not the case everywhere, especially in rural Montana. We want to make sure that we have the best person that understands children and students and education and pedagogy.
Yeah.
All and mortar learnings can happen once we get them into a role. We have a mentorship program where we have other schools leadership mentor that individual. Do it all the time in clerks. They handle almost the $2 billion that we flow out to districts, and a majority of them are very rural. So there's great opportunities. You don't just have to have a master's. You don't just have to have all of that pedigree to get you started. It can happen all the way through, and it's up to your community to mentor you as much as the state or anyone else in education.
Yeah, I appreciate that approach. Just I mentioned there's 4 positions open only here in Flathead County, and I imagine there's a lot across the state. What are your thoughts on teacher turnover? I've seen a number of resignations this year for a variety of reasons. Is this something that is a result of the pandemic, or is this a result of leadership, or just where we're at in general with employees and jobs?
Thank you, Jim. Before I became a teacher, I was an economist, and I love the future view, looking at a supply and demand equation and understanding the aptitude of a market. Well, there is a market in education as well, and it's not just about the economics. I mean, of course, compensation of what you do is very important. It allows you to put many things in front of your family, feeding your family, giving great opportunities for that future view. But the other part that economics brings is it brings in the large demographics of our state. We are the 4th largest geographical state in, the lower 48. We also are the 4th aged state of our nation. In other words, everybody in the market right now is, 48 and older, especially in education, which means then that opportunity for that next step is limited. So some people are staying in education, but some people are also leaving and retiring. And we've watched that trend. So could the pandemic have done something to it? Of course. It was a very stressful time for all of us across our nation, across our world. And in education, even more so, when they were thrust into a digital world, a two-faced digital world, rather than a 3-dimensional world. So pandemic could have something to do with it. We've always in rural Montana had a challenge with recruiting teachers from urban, whether they are urban Montana or from out of state. But one of the things that we did at the state level was we looked at other states around us 23 states accredit education programs like we do. That means we're leaving on the table 27 states that we can't have teachers come in to rural Montana or into any classroom across our state. So we have really tried to adapt to what our licensing rules look like. Yes, we want quality. We never want the bad. We want the greatest in front of my grandchildren, in front of all the children that are taught across our state. We want the best, but we don't want to lower the bar. But the other part that I believe in, and this is the business degree in me as well, is to say, let's open up the gate. Let's let the employer, the school board, hire. They know how to grow that person from a classroom teacher all the way to becoming that leader in the community. Because community schools, government community schools across our state, they're the heart of who we were. They're the heart of who we are going to be. And they are currently the biggest heart that we have right now. It's our rural schools.
I'd love to hear your perspective on that, and certainly the work that you're doing to allow teachers from other states to come here, because they bring so much value. And as you've probably seen in the paper, Kalispell is the fastest growing city in Montana. We've certainly seen plenty of people come in here. Talk about briefly the role of OPI and the resource that you guys provide, not only but to the schools, but to the state. Just like what you're suggesting, changing or allowing teachers to come in. I think it's such a wonderful thing.
Well, thank you. The business person in me is always looking at that business budget, but it's not so much always about the gold that you have in hand. It's your goal that's in the future. And, we're close to a $2 billion budget that we give out to schools. And that gives them the opportunity to be able to expend those dollars for any opportunity that's there. I'm a constitutionalist, so I firmly believe in what we have in our Constitution of making sure that there is opportunities for individuals, and that's an equal opportunity. That's not that discussion about equity. It's making sure that there is an equal opportunity for all to achieve their full potential, and that's quoted from our Montana Constitution. I firmly believe then that who we are at the state level, and we're the second largest agency at the state level, is that we serve. So we try to get answers to individuals within a school system, whether they are the lunch clerk, whether they are the attendance clerk, whether they are, the PTA person, or whether they are the individual in the health class. We are the ones that have the knowledge, the data, and we try to give them the answer as promptly as possible. And we know people shop. In other words, they shop government. They want to know that, are we doing it right? Should they go to the county superintendent? Should they then check around to the other superintendents in the county or in the region? But our job is to have not only give that gold, but also give that gold learning, the data point to anyone who would like to know that. That's why, Jim, I gave you my cell number. I firmly believe that being responsive in government right now is part of being transparent, because everything that I do is by public tax dollar, whether it comes in from the federal government or whether it comes in at the local level where you're sitting, or whether it comes in from our state income and property taxes. If I can be a better distributor of that dollar and give them great opportunities, then I'm serving everything that dollar should be used for. And more importantly, I believe that the goal is for our students. It's to encourage our children to learn to the best of their ability. And I've always said that parents are the first teacher. Parents need to be in that boardroom. Parents need to be in that classroom. Parents need to see the curriculum as transparent as possible. They need to understand the goals of the district. If they can, then we're in great partnership because we put our children first.
I love hearing you use the word transparency, because I think that there's a severe lack of that in government and people that oversee different departments across our country, not just our own little areas. I also like the rural school district